The Federal and Pedesta Hospital jointly present the Kanyakumari Marathon 2025. This event is co-presented by Rojavanam International School. Run for Health on Sunday, May 4. Entry is free and all are welcome.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise, a weekly program that attempts to deconstruct trending international news of particular interest to the Indian New Year. As we speak today, war clouds are hovering over the hostile India-Pakistan border across Kashmir, following the terrorist attack on Pahalgam, killing 26 tourists. The Indian government blames Pakistan as the sponsor behind the attack, and tempers are running high. The militaries on both sides are on high alert. Intermittent firing is being reported from across the line of control. A section of the Indian public is clamoring for war, if social media is any indication. Another section is calling for a decisive response, short of war, against the perpetrators of the Pahalgam killings. The issue here is whether war is necessary and if it will in any way prevent future Pahalgam type attacks in the backdrop of the dispute over Kashmir between the two neighbors, both of which are nuclear powers. War is more often than not an emotional response, and how such a war will proceed is anybody's guess. Without comparing wars, as each is distinct with its own history and reasoning, it would be illustrative to look at a few contemporary wars and see if they have managed to resolve the disputes that triggered the wars in the first place. Let's look at the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, which started on February 24th, 2022. Russian President Vladimir Putin, reacting to Ukraine's move to join the United States-led Western military alliance, NATO, abruptly embarked on a war that took the world by surprise. His government called it a special operation, but that was a thinly disguised term for an all-out invasion against its perceived weaker neighbor, Ukraine. Putin may have meant it as a warning and probably planned to end it in a few days after teaching a quick lesson to Ukraine. That is what had happened earlier in the 2008 Russian aggression against Georgia. It quickly ended in a few days after the government in Georgia agreed to toe the Russian line. It may have been a similar gamble against Ukraine, but this time Putin found out after initiating the war that he had bitten more than he can chew. The war is now raging for more than 3 years. Yes, Ukrainians have paid a heavy price. Thousands, including troops, have been killed in the crossfire. Large cities have been damaged extensively. Millions have had to abandon their homes and either flee to other parts, quieter parts of their own country, or flee abroad as refugees. It will take years for Ukraine to be rebuilt after the war ends, whenever it does. And as for people, their loss of family, relatives, and friends will be permanent. Even Russia, which started the war, is suffering. The Russian military is stretched. Many troops have died. And worse, the general public is skeptical about the war itself, other than Putin supporters. Putin has struggled to constrict soldiers for his cause. Many fled the country to escape fighting. Foreigners, including many Indians who went to Russia in search of civilian jobs, found themselves forced to go to the front line and work in the army. In the process, some got killed and others tried to escape and return home. Putin has had to take the help of North Korean soldiers and covert Chinese aid to sustain the war. It was a superpower when part of the Soviet Union, but no longer so. Clearly, Russia is feeling the pinch too. But the point is, Will this war prevent Ukraine from joining NATO, the original reason for the conflict? For now, it appears that United States President Donald Trump is arm twisting his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, into accepting Russian terms for ending the war. Trump may well succeed, and Putin may appear to emerge victorious. But lest we forget, NATO is not a time bound exercise. Ukraine may join NATO after the end of Putin's term as president, in a few years or after several years, but one day it is most likely to join NATO. The question will always be asked whether Putin did right by waging a war against Ukraine, and if it was indeed necessary to shed so much of blood for this reason. Whether it was worth making enemies out of ordinary Ukrainians, many of whom still held Russia in high regard until Putin's invasion destroyed any remnants of an erstwhile relationship. Let's look at another war, the Iran Iraq War that lasted 8 years from 1980 to 1988. The war started when Saddam's troops occupied the Iranian side of the disputed Shatt al Arab River that forms the boundary between the two countries. Again, thousands lost their lives, both countries suffered, and when the war ended, there was no change in the map of Iran and Iraq. It ended in a stalemate. Saddam Hussein had calculated that Iran, weakened by the 1979 revolution, would not be able to handle Iraq's attack. After the initial shock, Iran recovered and pushed Iraqi troops back to its original borders. Both countries suffered economically and in many different ways, the effects of which are perceptible even to this day. Saddam paid a heavier price for instigating the war. He followed up with the invasion of Kuwait when it refused to cooperate with him on the issue of increasing oil prices. Saddam required higher oil prices to rebuild Iraq after the disastrous war with Iran. When Kuwait refused, Saddam invaded the country only to be pushed out by an international coalition. The moral of the story was that Saddam was weakened and eventually forced out of power when the US invaded his country a decade later in 2003. His war with Iran served little purpose. The nature of war is such that it tends to unleash unexpected forces, follows its own unsparing dynamics of wanton killing and destruction. And in almost all cases, the results are never what was initially anticipated. Though it was not a war in the conventional sense, let's look at the Palestinian group Hamas's armed attack on Israel on October 7, 2 years ago. It was largely an emotional reaction to the decades of oppression suffered by Palestinians in Gaza under virtual occupation of Israel. But militarily speaking, what was Hamas trying to achieve? What was its leadership thinking? Would their guerrilla attack end Israel's occupation, resolving the decades old dispute? Whatever their thinking was, none could have imagined the scale of Israel's response, that some term as genocidal, a charge that is being heard by the International Court of Justice. The decimation of around 60,000 Palestinians in an assault that is still continuing. Was the Hamas attack that gave it a short moment of glory worth the destruction of Gaza that some visiting journalists have called a destruction of biblical proportions? As things stand now, Israel is sitting pretty. It appears unaccountable for what it has done, thanks to the unstinted support of successive US governments and governments in Europe. From the point of view of military action, beyond what was intended, Hamas's attack has proved disastrous. No, it's actually catastrophic for Palestinians. A second Nakba, some call it. There are many more examples about wars and what they have ended up doing. Coming back to India, will an attack now on Pakistan in any way resolve the Kashmir dispute? Will a war prevent future attacks similar to Pahalgam and Mumbai? A war may look good for those watching it in their living rooms, on television, help in the chest thumping by political actors close to the government, and generally satiate the urge to take revenge on Pakistan. But what about the killings, destruction, economic impact, and the danger of the unexpected that accompanies any war? What if the nuclear option is resorted to by either of the two countries in the heat of the conflict? Who will be held accountable for all this? Is such a gamble really required? An alternative, level headed response might look meek, even timid, but has better chances of proving effective. For example, after the Mumbai terror attacks, India acted to place Pakistan in the grey list of the Paris based Financial Action Task Force. It proved deadly for the government in Islamabad as it came under close international scrutiny, squeezed it financially, and hampered its questionable extracurricular activities centered around India. Recently, the FATF removed Pakistan from the grey list. Whether linked to this or not, we don't know as yet. The Pahalgam attack followed. Maybe India can use its resources and diplomacy to move the FATF once more and try placing Pakistan again in the dock. All nations around the world, including Pakistan's close allies like Turkey and China, condemned the Pahalgam attack. The Indian government can use its moral high to push its case on Kashmir internationally, win the confidence and trust of ordinary Kashmiris outraged by the Pahalgam killings, and actively work towards resolving the decades old Kashmir dispute, knowing, and this is important, it has the world behind it. Thank you.
The Federal and Pedesta Hospital jointly present the Kanyakumari Marathon 2025. This event is co-presented by Rojavanam International School. Run for Health on Sunday, May 4. Entry is free and all are welcome.